No one ever makes $1 billion.
I still get enormous pleasure from watching great athletes on the court. And nobody exemplifies excellence in basketball better than the Los Angeles Lakers last year. Of course, I've got to recognize Kobe Bryant, one of the most competitive players I've ever seen. For being named Finals MVP last year, obviously already MVPs under his belt, the youngest player ever to reach 25,000 points in his career. And he's playing with a broken finger. Now, if I had a broken finger, I would have trouble getting out of bed. And he's still leading the team day in, day out. I get my official Lakers jersey here. Now, I have to say that there's a long-standing tradition of welcoming championship sports teams to the White House. But here's the thing, these guys have been there so often. They were just there last year because they won the title, and Kobe and Derek have been there so many times now they could lead tours themselves. Same is true for Coach Jackson. So I thought we'd change things up a little bit. We teamed up with NBA Cares to come here to the Ark and spend a little time with the unbelievable young people who are here, as well as the terrific staff. And I was just walking around watching these players work with students, assembling care packages for our wounded warriors, putting together some toiletry kits for the homeless here in Washington, D.C., and trying to keep up with the kids on the Big Brain Academy Challenge, which I didn't even try because it was moving way too fast for me. I want to congratulate Kobe Bryant, the NBA Finals MVP for the second year in a row. Kobe was there when we organized a little pickup game for my 49th birthday. Pau Gasol and some other NBA players participated. Derek was there. Kobe was sidelined because he had just gotten some treatment on his knee. I was not yet sidelined with my busted lip. But nobody was taking it easy on me because Pau was on my team. So I kept on just passing to him.
No one ever makes $1 billion. You take $1 billion. First of all, it's like we have to update, what is it, Mark Twain, that says, everyone's just a temporarily embarrassed millionaire. Now everyone's a temporarily embarrassed billionaire. And this idea that that we can't, and also in a democracy, the government is us. Like, can we just remember that when we fight for full enfranchisement, when we don't deny the vote, when we don't have subjects, when we fight for a democracy for the people and by the people, the government is the public. And the public decides what is good for itself. And I think that the public has decided that healthcare as a right is worth fighting for, just like education and just like housing. But the problem is all of where the power has already been concentrated, and that having to break that monopoly on power or oligopoly on power.
I just want to drill down that a little bit more, though. Why specifically does you know, I'm Joe Billionaire. I made widgets. I sold those widgets. I made billions of dollars, you know, selling those widgets, making those widgets. Therefore, those billions of dollars are mine. Why am I the enemy of healthcare?
Well, you didn't make those widgets, did you? Because you employed thousands of people and paid them less than a living wage to make those widgets for you. You didn't make those widgets. You sat on a couch while thousands of people were paid modern day slave wages, and in some cases real modern day slavery, depending on where you are in terms of food production. You made that money off the backs of undocumented people. You made that money off of the backs of black and brown people being paid off under a living wage. You made that money off of the backs of single mothers, and all of these people who are literally dying because they can't afford to live. And so no one ever makes $1 billion. You take $1 billion. This system that we live in, life in capitalism, always ends in billionaires. If you don't do it, someone else will. It's who decides to make that choice is kind of just up to, you know, circumstance. But this thing that we live in starves people. And that's why we have to fight for an advanced society. And, you know, for that, I am called a radical. I am called every name in the book. But I just happen to have the view that humanity has lived in many systems and many ways that we organized our society. We have lived through monarchy. We have lived through slaveocracy. We have lived, you know, in the times and societies that our ancestors established and were decimated. But all of this is temporary. Mercantilism is temporary. Slaveocracy evolved into Jim Crow, evolved into American apartheid. But I believe that mercantilism was temporary. And King talked about this too. You know, when we talk about King, no one talks about the dangerous king. No one talks about the anti-capitalist king. No one talks about the anti-poverty king. And I believe that where we are right now are at the edges of an untenable system that is starting to crack.
Get your facts straight.
Okay. The House did not come with a complete case, and every impeachment beforehand, the witnesses that were called had been called in the House before being brought to the Senate. So there are questions here about the process and the precedent.
They hadn't all been called in the House. And in the Clinton impeachment, they had been called by the general, the independent counsel. They had not been called in the House.
After an extensive Justice Department investigation,
but they weren't
Chris.
Called in the
but that
House,
is very
just wrong, Katie.
That is very different than the witnesses who were called in the investigation before. Let me finish. Before the articles were sent to the House, the Justice Department investigation, the grand jury material in the Clinton impeachment were handed to the House as part of the articles and given to the Senate. They were not given after the House voted for those articles.
Katie, what you're saying just isn't true. The fact of the matter was that the whistleblower information was given to the Inspector General, who gave it to the Justice Department. The Justice Department decided not to investigate, and that is why it went to the House. So to say that in the Clinton investigation that these people were interviewed by the House, one, they weren't, and to say that it wasn't done by the Justice Department because the Justice Department refused to carry out the investigation. Get your facts straight.
Let's talk about some of the facts here.
The president was at all times acting under his constitutional authority, under his legal authority, in our national interest, and pursuant to his oath of office.
But as they lay out their case, a new revelation. The New York Times reporting, citing multiple sources, that in a draft of his upcoming book, John Bolton writes President Trump wanted to continue withholding military aid to Ukraine until the country helped with investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens.
It completely blasts another hole in the president's defense.
The Democrats using the manuscript information to continue their call for the former national security advisor and others to testify. A few Republicans agreeing.
It's increasingly likely that other Republicans will join those of us who think we should hear from John Bolton.
Others in the GOP not so sure.
I'll just cut to the chase. It really doesn't change anything in terms of the process.
Nobody knows this stuff better than me.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do and income than I do.
Nobody knows more about construction than I do.
Nobody knows more about campaign finance than I do.
Nobody knows consultants better than me.
I know more about drones than anybody. Nobody knows much more about technology, this type of technology, certainly, than I do.
Nobody knows more about technology than me.
I know more about technology than anybody. Nobody in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump. I know the H-1B. I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me.
I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me. Nobody understands the press, but I think I understand them as well as anybody.
I mean, I know these people much better than you do.
I understand things. I comprehend very well, okay? Better than, I think, almost anybody. And by the way, who knew the other side of the picture better than me? I knew it.
Nobody knows more about environmental impact statements than me. And I think I know more about the environment than most people.
I know a lot about wind. I know a lot about wind.
You know, I know windmills very much. I've studied it better than anybody. I understand the power of Facebook, maybe better than almost anybody. I know more about renewables than any human being on Earth. Nobody knows more about polls than me.
I know more about courts than any human being on Earth.
I understand healthcare now, especially very well. A lot of people don't understand it. I know the angles. I know every angle.
I know more about steelworkers than anybody that's ever run for office.
I know more about golf than Obama knows.
And you know, in the case of Turkey and the Kurds, I could go into a whole story because I understand it, I think, better than most.
And I know all about it. I've known about it for a long time. I know the subject better than anybody.
I know.
This guy talks about, I know Scranton, I know that. Well, I know the places better.
Nobody knows more about banks than I do.
Nobody knows more about trade than me. Well, obviously, he doesn't know about nuclear weapons. I know more about nuclear weapons than he'll ever know.
You know Russians better than I do, Kevin, okay?
I understand the tax laws
better than almost anyone.
Who knows more about lawsuits than I do? I'm the king. I know more about offense and defense than they will ever understand.
Nobody even understands it but me. It's called devaluation.
I understand money better than anybody. I understand the system better than anybody. Nobody knows more about debt than I do.
Nobody knows the game better than me.
I know more about contributions than anybody.
Even the smart guys on Wall Street, and I know all of them, and they are smart.
And who knows more about the word apprentice than Donald Trump?
I understand politicians better than anybody. Nobody knows politicians better than me. Who knows the other side better than me? Who knows the other side better than me?
I think I know more about the other side than almost anybody. And I understand the other side. Perhaps I understand it better than anybody else. I was the fair-haired boy. Nobody knows more about it than me.
I know more than these politicians. These guys don't know anything. I know a lot. I know more than I'm ever going to tell you.
The truth is, I'm actually a modest person, very modest. It's true.
I heard that they had headaches and a couple of other things, but I would say, and I can report, it is not very serious.
Mr. President, a question on Iran. Initially, you said repeatedly to Americans that after Iran retaliated for the Soleimani strike, no Americans were injured.
We were very happy when we learned not only nobody was killed, but nobody was even hurt.
We now know at least 11 U.S. servicemen were airlifted from Iraq. Can you explain the discrepancy?
No, I heard that they had headaches and a couple of other things, but I would say, and I can report, it is not very serious.
So you don't consider potential traumatic brain injury serious?
They told me about it numerous days later. You'd have to ask the Department of Defense. No, I don't consider them very serious injuries relative to other injuries that I've seen.
I'm pleased to inform you, the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime. We suffered no casualties. All of our soldiers are safe.
Not very serious. Potential traumatic brain injury serious?
They told me about it numerous days later. You'd have to ask Department of Defense. No, I don't consider them very serious injuries relative to other injuries that I've seen. I've seen what Iran has done with their roadside bombs to our troops. I've seen people with no legs and with no arms. I've seen people that were horribly, horribly injured in that area, that war. In fact, many cases those bombs put there by Soleimani, who's no longer with us. I consider them to be really bad injuries. No, I do not consider that to be bad injuries, no.